She rejected you. You walked away. You're trying to move on. But then she starts watching every one of your stories. She likes old posts. She brings you up in conversations. And you're thinking, what is she doing? Does this mean something? Or am I overthinking? Let me decode this. When a woman rejects you, but then does specific things that keep her in your orbit, she's not confused. She's reconsidering. And there are 5 clear patterns that separate genuine regret from casual curiosity. Most men make one of 2 mistakes. They either chase immediately, thinking it's a green light, or they ignore it completely, assuming she's just being polite. Both kill any chance of this going anywhere. Here's what you need to understand. A woman who's truly regretting her decision shows it through actions, not words. She'll test the waters in very specific ways. And if you know how to read those signals and respond strategically, you're in a completely different position. I'm walking you through the 5 exact signs, the psychology driving each one, and your move for every scenario. By the end, you'll know if she's genuinely reconsidering, or if it's time to close that door. Now, before I break down those 5 signs, let me be clear about what this video is and what it's not. This isn't about chasing someone who doesn't want you, and it's not about playing games or manipulation. This is about clarity. Being able to read the situation accurately so you can make informed decisions about your next move. Here's what you need to understand from a woman's perspective. Rejection doesn't happen in a vacuum. When a woman rejects you, she's making that decision based on specific factors at that specific moment. How she feels about herself, what's happening in her life, how she perceives the dynamic between you two. But those factors can shift. And when they do, so can her feelings. The problem is most men don't recognize when that shift happens because they're either too bitter to notice or too eager to see signs that aren't really there. So let me walk you through what genuine regret actually looks like, starting with why it happens in the first place. So why would a woman who rejected you start feeling regret? It comes down to one core psychological trigger: loss aversion. The moment she rejected you, you became an option she no longer has. And humans hate losing options, even ones they didn't think they wanted. When you were interested and available, you were predictable. She knew where you stood. But the second you stopped pursuing her, stopped reaching out, stopped being available in the way you were before, something shifts in her mind. You go from being the guy who wanted her to being the guy who might not want her anymore. And that uncertainty creates a completely different emotional response. Here's what most men don't realize. The men she keeps thinking about after rejection aren't necessarily the ones who were perfect. They're the ones who didn't chase. The ones who respected her decision and moved on with their lives. Because that behavior signals something she wasn't expecting: self-respect, options, a life that doesn't revolve around her. And when she sees that, especially if her circumstances change or she starts comparing you to other guys she's dealing with, regret starts to creep in. She starts wondering if she made the right call. She starts paying attention to what you're doing. And that's when these 5 specific behaviors start showing up. So here are the 5 signs. 1. She's actively monitoring your life, watching your stories, checking your posts, asking people about you. 2. She initiates contact but keeps it surface level, testing the waters without risking rejection herself. 3. She shows jealousy or curiosity about your dating life, because the idea of you moving on triggers scarcity anxiety. 4. She references shared memories or talks about what could have been, which means she's emotionally revisiting the relationship. And 5. She apologizes or admits she was wrong, which is the strongest signal because it requires vulnerability and ego surrender. These aren't random behaviors. Each one reveals a specific psychological state, and each one requires a different strategic response from you. Let's break down exactly what each sign means and what you should do when you see it. Sign number 1. She's monitoring your life. This shows up as her watching your Instagram or Snapchat stories consistently, especially if she wasn't doing that before. You'll see her name appearing in your story views. She might like old posts or photos from weeks or months ago. She's asking mutual friends about you, what you're up to, if you're seeing anyone, how you're doing. She's bringing you up in group conversations even when you're not there. Here's the psychology behind this behavior. When a woman rejects you and you actually respect that decision and pull back, she loses her ability to gauge where you are emotionally. She can't tell if you've moved on, if you're hurt, if you're angry, or if you're completely indifferent. And that uncertainty bothers her more than she expected it would. Monitoring your life is her way of maintaining some sense of connection and control without having to directly engage. She wants to know if you're doing better without her, if you're meeting other women, if you seem happy. Because if you are, that triggers the loss aversion we talked about earlier. Suddenly, you're not the guy sitting around waiting for her to change her mind. You're the guy who moved on. And that shift changes everything. Now here's what separates genuine regret from just casual curiosity. Pay attention to the pattern and frequency. If she's checking your stories every single day, if she's consistently the first or second person to view them, if she's going back through your old content, that's not random. That's investment. Casual curiosity shows up as occasional, inconsistent monitoring. Regret shows up as a pattern you can track. So what should you do when you notice this? Don't acknowledge it directly. Don't post things specifically for her attention or call her out for watching your stories. That comes across as either desperate or petty. Instead, keep living your life visibly well. Post things that show you're engaged in your life, spending time with friends, working on projects, staying active. Let her monitor you seeing a man who's doing fine without her. But here's what's important to understand. Monitoring alone doesn't mean she's ready to do anything about her regret. It's a passive behavior. She's gathering information, but she's not taking action. Which brings us to sign number 2, where her behavior shifts from passive observation to active testing. Sign number 2. She initiates contact, but she keeps it surface level. This looks like random texts out of nowhere. Saw this and thought of you, or how have you been? She might send you a meme, comment on your story with something casual, or find an excuse to message you about something that doesn't really require a conversation. She's bringing you up in group chats when you're both there. She's creating opportunities for interaction without making herself vulnerable. Here's what's happening psychologically. She wants to test the water without risking another rejection. She rejected you, so in her mind, you have every right to be cold, distant, or uninterested in talking to her. But she needs to know if you're still receptive, if there's still an opening there. So she reaches out with low-stakes communication that gives her plausible deniability. If you don't respond well or you shut her down, she can tell herself it wasn't a real attempt anyway. This is where you need to understand the difference between breadcrumbing and genuine testing. Breadcrumbing is when she reaches out just enough to keep you as an option, but shows no real interest in actually reconnecting. She'll text you when she's bored, respond to your messages inconsistently, and never take the conversation anywhere meaningful. Genuine testing is different. She's actually trying to gauge your receptiveness and openness. Her messages might be surface level, but there's a consistency to them. She's paying attention to how you respond. So what should you do when this happens? Respond, but mirror her energy exactly. If she sends you a casual meme, respond casually. If she asks how you've been, give her a brief, friendly answer without diving into deep conversation or asking a ton of questions back. The key is to be pleasant and responsive without showing that you're waiting around for her or that her reaching out is a big deal to you. What you don't want to do is either ignore her completely, which shuts down any possibility of things moving forward, or over-engage, which signals that you're still sitting around hoping she'll come back. Both extremes kill the dynamic. You want to show that you're open and respectful, but you're not chasing. You're living your life, and she's welcome to be part of it, but only if she puts in real effort. And that brings us to the next sign, which is where things start to get interesting because her emotional investment becomes more obvious. Sign number 3. She shows jealousy or curiosity about your dating life. And this is the game changer. This is where you know she's not just passively monitoring or casually testing. She's emotionally invested in what you're doing and who you're with. This shows up in specific ways. She's asking you directly if you're seeing anyone. She's reacting to your posts that feature other women, even if they're just friends, with comments, likes, or subtle questions. She's fishing for information through mutual friends. You might hear she asked about you and specifically wanted to know if you're dating. Or she'll make offhand comments about your love life that sound casual but are clearly loaded. Here's the psychology. When she rejected you, there was an assumption that you'd wait around, that you'd be hurt and take time to get over her. But now she's seeing signs you might not be doing that. You're living your life. You're posting pictures with other people. You seem happy. And that creates scarcity anxiety. She thought she could circle back if she changed her mind, but now she's not sure you'll still be available. And let me be blunt, this is where most men blow it. They see her jealousy as a green light and immediately make themselves totally available again. That's exactly the wrong move. Her jealousy isn't permission to chase. It's a test of whether you actually have the self-respect and options she's now suspecting you might have. Here's how to tell if it's genuine jealousy versus possessive behavior. Genuine jealousy from regret comes with warmth. She's more engaged, more responsive when you interact, and she's actually trying to position herself back in your life, meaningfully. Possessive behavior shows up as criticism, passive-aggressive comments, or attempts to make you feel guilty without her putting in effort to reconnect. So what's your move? Be vague and unaffected. If she asks if you're seeing anyone, something like "I'm keeping my options open," or "I'm focused on my own thing right now" works perfectly. Don't deny you're dating, but don't give her details either. Post about your life without making it obvious you're trying to make her jealous. The goal is living abundantly, not performing abundance. We're halfway through these signs. And if you're recognizing 3 or more in her behavior, pay close attention to what comes next. The next 2 signs show an even deeper level of emotional processing on her end. Sign number 4. She references shared memories or talks about what could have been. This is where the emotional processing really deepens. She's not just monitoring you or testing your receptiveness anymore. She's mentally revisiting the relationship and romanticizing what you had together. This looks like her bringing up good times you shared, inside jokes, places you went together, or things you did. She might say things like "remember when we," or "that was such a good time." She'll post nostalgic content, like old photos or references to experiences you shared. Or she'll talk in hypotheticals. "If we had done this differently," or "I wonder what would have happened if." She's exploring alternate timelines in her mind. Here's what this reveals psychologically. When someone references the past like this, they're not just reminiscing. They're emotionally reprocessing the relationship with new information and perspective. Something shifted in how she sees you or what she values. And now, when she thinks back on your time together, she's seeing it differently than she did when she made the decision to reject you. The key thing to understand is the language she's using. If she's speaking in past tense, that was great. She's just remembering. But if she's using present or future conditional language, we had something special, or things could have been different. She's testing whether there's still an opening. She's seeing if you'll engage with that hypothetical thinking, because that tells her whether you're still emotionally available. Now, this is one of the more subtle signs because nostalgia doesn't automatically mean she wants to try again. Sometimes people romanticize the past precisely because it's in the past and feel safe to idealize. So you need to look at this alongside the other signs. If she's monitoring you, reaching out, showing jealousy, and now bringing up memories, that's a pattern. If it's just the memories piece by itself, she might just be feeling sentimental. Your response here should be to acknowledge the memory briefly, without diving deep into emotional nostalgia, with something like, "Yeah, that was a good time," or "I remember that," keeps it light and respectful, without reopening emotional wounds or making it seem like you're sitting around pining for the past. You're acknowledging the shared experience without attaching current meaning to it. And here's what you absolutely should not do. Don't use this as an opportunity to have a big emotional conversation about what went wrong or what could be different now. If she's genuinely reconsidering, she'll escalate beyond nostalgia. Which brings us to the fifth and strongest sign, the one that requires the most vulnerability from her. Sign number 5. And this is the strongest. She apologizes or admits she was wrong. This is the clearest signal of genuine regret, because it requires her to do the hardest thing, surrender her ego and make herself vulnerable to potential rejection. This can show up as a direct apology. "I'm sorry for how things ended," or "I handled that badly." It might be indirect. "I've been thinking about us and I realize I misjudged you," or "I didn't appreciate what we had." She might admit she made a mistake, that she wasn't in the right headspace, that she acted out of fear. The specific words matter less than the acknowledgement that she's taking responsibility. Here's why this is the strongest sign. Remember when we talked about how women show regret through actions, not words? This is the exception. An apology or admission of being wrong is an action. It's her putting herself in a vulnerable position, risking that you might reject her now. That takes genuine emotional processing and courage. She's not just passively monitoring or casually reaching out. She's actively owning her part in how things went down. Now here's the critical distinction. Is this a manipulation apology or a genuine one? Manipulation apologies sound like "I'm sorry you felt hurt" or "I'm sorry if I did something wrong." Those aren't real apologies. They're deflections that put the focus on your feelings rather than her actions. Genuine apologies are specific and take ownership. "I'm sorry I rejected you when I was scared," or "I was wrong about us not working." The other thing to watch for is consistency. If she apologizes but then her behavior doesn't change, she's not more engaged, more available, more interested, then it's just words designed to keep you as an option. Genuine regret shows up in changed behavior. She's not just saying she's sorry. She's showing you through increased effort, warmth, and investment that she means it. So what should you do if she apologizes? Receive it gracefully, but don't rush back in. Something like "I appreciate you saying that" acknowledges the apology without committing to anything. Then watch what she does next. Does she follow through with consistent effort and changed behavior? Or does she go back to the same patterns? Her actions after the apology matter more than the apology itself. Now you know all 5 signs. You can identify when a woman is genuinely regretting her decision. But here's the truth. Most men need to hear about what to do with this information. Even if she's showing all 5 signs, you shouldn't automatically take her back unless something fundamental changed. In her, not just in how she sees you. If she's regretting the rejection because you stopped chasing, that's not real change. That's her reacting to the dynamic shift. If you take her back without her understanding why she rejected you, you'll be in the exact same position when the novelty wears off. A woman who genuinely deserves another chance will demonstrate through consistent action that she's different. She'll have done her own work. She'll be clear about what she wants. She'll put in effort that matches yours without you having to convince her. Most men, when they see these signs, immediately try to prove themselves again. That's backwards. If she rejected you once, the burden isn't on you to prove your worth. The burden is on her to prove she's worth the risk. And here's the controversial part. Sometimes the best move, even when she's showing genuine regret, is to walk away anyway. Not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. The man who can recognize regret, appreciate it, and still choose himself, that's the man who never gets stuck waiting around for validation. Ask yourself this. Are you interested because you genuinely want to try again, or because your ego wants the validation of being chosen after being rejected? One leads to healthy reconnection. The other leads to constantly proving yourself to someone who already walked away. The real power isn't in getting her to regret rejecting you. The real power is in being the kind of man worth regretting losing, and then deciding for yourself whether she's earned another chance. That decision is yours now, not hers. So tell me, have you seen any of these 5 signs? Which one caught you off guard or made you realize something you hadn't recognized before? Are you seeing these signs and trying to figure out your next move, or have you already decided how you want to handle it? I read every comment because these situations are never black and white. Your specific context matters. What you're noticing, how long it's been, what kind of relationship you had, all of that changes the calculation. And your experiences help other men dealing with the same thing, trying to figure out if what they're seeing is real. This channel isn't just about decoding women's behavior after rejection. It's about building men who women regret losing in the first place. Men who have enough self-respect to recognize when someone's having second thoughts, appreciate it, and then make a conscious choice about whether that person belongs in their life. You're not sitting around waiting for her to decide if you're worth it. You're deciding if she's earned the right to be part of the life you're building. That shift, from seeking her validation to offering her an opportunity, that's what separates men who get stuck in these situations from men who actually have the power to walk away when necessary. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.